Biscuits. I got an absolutely great question that I could talk about forever. What is the summer in Western Washington like? So I love that I got asked this because that is a complicated question. You know, I have really enjoyed this last winter doing comparisons between states because I just think it's so much fun. But something that never gets talked about is the weather during the good season here in Western Washington. So you're thinking about moving, you're going, oh, do I want to move to Western Washington? Do I want to move to Washington along the coast-ish, you know, the western part? Maybe you do, maybe you don't. Here's your question. Okay, so I've talked a lot about the bad months in Western Washington and the Pacific Northwest in general, like what the weather's like and how depressing it is. But I guess now that I've talked to this person, I'm like, you're right, I never talk about this. So the good months are probably June, July, August, September-ish. So you get about 4 months. Generally speaking, most of August you can't go outside too much if you have bad lungs like I do. I'm asthmatic because there's a lot of forest fires we get from British Columbia that comes across the whole western Pacific Northwest part of Oregon and Washington. Sometimes all the way down to California, but always in Washington. I've never had an August where I could safely be outside the whole month, ever. So maybe you have like 3.5 good months. Sometimes May can be nice. This year we've actually had like an incredibly warm, dry May in comparison to what we frequently get, which is just wet and cold in May. If you love a tropical vibe or like a warm, toasty vibe, it rarely actually gets hot in the Pacific Northwest. Western Washington just doesn't get super toasty. You're gonna have some days in the mid 70s, but that's gonna be an unusually hot day. So think more like low 60s, upper 50s for your summertime weather, with peaks. Like it'll get warmer, but to get above 70, unusual. If you love to swim in natural bodies of water, take into consideration the lakes are so cold here, so cold. You really have to be cautious about when you're gonna swim in them and prepare yourself. Most of the rivers you can't swim in. If you find a shallow bay, you can kind of sit and splash. It's not deep enough to swim in. That'll be warm enough to hang out in. But bodies of water here, you pretty much have to have a man-made body of water if you really want to spend any amount of time in the water, or you will get hypothermia. So just take that into consideration. I've known people that are like, oh, the water up here is beautiful, I want to go swim in these things. So I'm like, it will literally stop your heart. You really got to be cautious. Basically, the more beautiful the water looks, the colder it is. Do not jump in the really gorgeous stuff. It can actually kill you. But if you love to just gaze at the water and like sit along it, this is a great area for that. It's beautiful in the summertime. I think that there's nowhere more beautiful in the world than the Pacific Northwest in the summer. It's like Scandinavia in the summer. It is just glorious. Everybody comes out of their shell and sits in the sunshine and enjoys, and it's a beautiful place. But it's never gonna get all that warm. Bodies of water you really gotta be cautious about. We do get a lot of mosquitoes because we have such wet springs that and falls that we get a lot of standing water, and so you will get a lot of mosquitoes, but I mean nowhere near like nothing like Michigan mosquitoes. Our mosquitoes are a little tiny. There's a lot of them, but they're tiny compared to like I remember being in Michigan and just, I mean, mosquitoes the size of my children would try to bite me. You would spray the mosquitoes with DEET and they would just flex their muscles and bite you. It was terrifying. So all things being relative, of course. The food scene up in Western Washington is going to be a lot of craft breweries. It's going to be burgers and fries, like American Northwest fare isn't big on flavor. It's more on presentation, I would say. And the bakeries are going to be more Danish influenced or donuts and things. I don't see a lot of like Parisian or German bakeries up here, which are some of my favorite types. So I don't think it's a big food scene per se in quality. There's a big drinking scene. Oh my gosh, if you love summer, open air beer gardens and drinking lots of you know, artisan brews, this is like a great spot for that. There's amazing places in Western Washington for that. There's a place that I have a growler to that I like to go, and they used to, I don't know if they still do, they would make homemade root beer, and I would get a giant growler and share it with the kids. It's great fun. So it really depends. What is your preference for what you want to be doing with your summertime? It's great weather for getting out because it's never super hot, so you can go hiking in the mountains. You can go along beach walks and still wear a sweater even at the peak July. Some areas of Western Washington take 4th of July very seriously in the best way, like crazy fireworks and things. It's great fun. There's all sorts of kite festivals up and down the coast because of wind. You're gonna get berry season, which is probably like one of the reasons I live up here. Raspberry, blackberry season, weight of my heart. My 2-year-old and I are like watching our raspberry bushes this year, like, oh, when are we gonna get berries? We cannot wait. We're very excited for this. So amazing. Like, if you were into wildcrafting and picking your own food, there's just incredible stuff for that. I love it for it. A pretty good pie scene. I would say there's different places up and down Western Washington that sell good pies. Pies and cookies, I think, are their specialty. Food related. So I think, you know, outdoorsy, but don't expect to be lounging outdoors. Pacific Northwest is more about people that want to go outdoors to do something, to hike, to camp, to rock climb, to pick berries, to pick apples, to be outside doing things. I would say this area isn't really into the being outside to relax by the ocean, suntan, and swim in hot waters, right? Like, that's just not this area. So if those are your things, totally hop on over, because Western Washington will not welcome you because they have the Seattle freeze, but it is a beautiful area. Okay, I'm glad I answered this. This is so fun. I never would have thought, if I hadn't gotten this question, that I never talk about this, but you're right. I only talk about the really bad season in Western Washington. So I hope that answers the question, because I enjoyed answering a question that I would have never come up with on my own. I will see you over on Patreon because, whoa, what's that? The key to happiness is self-care, and our community on Patreon is the best self-care community on the internet. Biscuits, you better run, not walk, to sign up for this month. It's our month of alignment. See ya.